What's up YouTube? Back again with another Cubase 10 video. We're going to wrap up our look at the Acoustic Agent module in Groove Agent 5. Yesterday we created a MIDI groove from scratch with kind of a realistic feel, and we adjusted the settings, went through some different kit presets, tried to see, get a feel for how good this thing is for creating drum and bass drums really. Today we're going to go in, we're going to settle on one kit. I've chosen the one that we processed towards the end in the last video. It was from one of the refills I have called Funk Essentials. It was called Straight Shuffle. Now I've just resaved it as tutorial here, but it's the exact same preset. I took it back to the regular settings because in the mixer here, it's one that doesn't really have a whole lot going on with the reverb. If you take the reverb send off of this, it doesn't affect the sound of it too much. The MIDI that we created yesterday is this loop right here. You may notice that I brought down the velocity on the open hats. When I drew them back in, I forgot to adjust it, and it was poking out in the mix quite a lot, so I changed that. These are the two edits that I've made. The first one here, I basically just took out the cowbell and added more ghost snares and kicks to create a few rolls at the end of each 4 bars. And then this one I added a ride. But that ride, I programmed it in myself, and I feel like it sounds a bit programmed. There are other ways, and honestly easier ways than programming in a ride yourself using this thing. So let's have a look at the style player and how we can integrate that into our own MIDI. So up here, I think this is the original groove that we created yesterday. Just going to let it play through. No, that's not the one. This was the original one. Okay. So say we wanted one with a ride, what I would generally do is load up a second kit. Now, just to make it a bit easier to work with, I'm going to add a second MIDI channel here, which I'm going to call Kit 2. And we'll add that, make sure that it's on MIDI channel 2 for Groove Agent. And on the pattern bank here, I'm going to make sure that global is off, so each kit has its own pattern bank. And I'm also going to assign them to the correct MIDI channels. This one's just going to want to be on 2. I'm now going to load up the original preset here on Kit 2. And this should load up the original patterns. And we can see if there's one that has a ride that sounds more realistic than the one I just made. Bit fast. Okay, so the patterns in the kit that we used the preset for may not be ideal, but that doesn't matter because we can right click here and just load a different pattern group. Maybe go through some of the others in Funk Essentials here. Let's try Vintage Masterclass. Okay, so let's see how the ones at the top here are probably higher intensity on this slider here, like I showed you in the more overview video of Groove Agent. So there's probably a ride in a couple of these. Yeah, maybe not another great example. Let's try another one. Bit fast and shuffly for me. Let's see, let's try one more. Okay, that one's kind of running. We could probably work with that. So what I would do is just drag that up to the second MIDI channel. We're going to create a drum map from the instrument now. Inside the MIDI editor, we're just going to delete everything but the ride. Well, we don't even really need to do that. We can just select the ride here, copy it, close this, go into our main MIDI, take the transport back to 0 and paste. And there it is. And if we bring the transport to here, make sure it's dead on, let's turn on snap, we'll paste again. Okay, now we're going to need to make sure that we take out other conflicting drums. So let's make sure we take out these hats. And the cowbell. And we'll maybe go right back to the beginning and just replace the very first ride with the crash that we have. Let's see how that sounds. I think follow transport's on, it's phasing. Oh no, it's because we have this down here. Let's delete that guy, take it back. You know, that would be good if we wanted a more running one. I think honestly I do kind of prefer in this case the one that I created, but that's kind of how you can just take other parts and merge it with your MIDI if you're not particularly comfortable with programming it yourself. And we're going to do just that now with some fills, because the tom placement on a fill and just knowing where to put all of the hits can be quite difficult and take a lot of trial and error. And we have a way of doing it without all that trial and error, so I think it makes sense to do that. So I'm going to delete out this MIDI here for now. We're going to open up Groove Agent, and let's pull up this one here, which is another one I created that has some snare rolls. So yeah, we'll take that one, drag it up onto the channel here. And then we'll shorten it by 1 bar. And then on the second kit here, we can start listening to some of the fills. And, some of the ones in here are probably going to be a bit complex, so we can start, loading different pattern groups that maybe come with blues. Let's try, straight 8. Okay, so that one's quite basic. We'll take that. So you just copy the pad there with a right click. We'll go onto our version and we'll paste it here. We'll go back, check out some more. Some of those are quite cool, but we've got tons here, so let's keep looking. Let's maybe look in some of the other Funk Essentials kits. That one's not bad. Okay, let's copy this one. I'm just going to take a few random ones from here. Take that one. Maybe one more. Okay, do we have one? Okay, yeah, we have one with some toms. Okay, so what we can do now is just, drag these fills up here. So let's start with this one. And now, if we glue this together, let's just get the last two bars loop in. I'm going to get rid of this crash because we already have one at the beginning. Let's see, what else have we got here? These hats here, let's bring them down to kind of match the velocity of our others a bit more. Okay. Okay, sounds a bit more in line with the rest of our groove now. So what I would do then is close that. We'll cut off that bar. We'll go back to Groove Agent. We'll replace it. And we'll delete that. Move on to the next one. Glue those together. Loop it through. I might just leave that one as it is. It sounds okay. Sounds okay to me, that one. Maybe we'll drop it back on there because we took out the crash. Okay, on to number 3. And really we're just trying to make sure that the velocities are matching our existing MIDI. Glue those together again. Close that, go inside the MIDI. I'm going to take out the crash, probably that hat. Okay, so maybe bring these guys down a bit as well. Okay, I think that'll do. What we got here, another crash. Bring that down a bit too. Alright, moving on. We'll cut that off, replace it on Groove Agent again. And we'll do the last one real quick. Okay, I think I like that now. We'll cut that one off, drag it back onto Groove Agent and replace it. Okay, so now we have all of that. We can delete this MIDI. And let's kind of build up a groove using this stuff and see kind of how it sounds. So I'll drag one of these up, duplicate it, take off that last bar, we'll put that one there, move into the one with the cowbell, duplicate that, maybe use the one with the toms, and then the one with the ride. We'll duplicate that, shorten it, maybe use that one. Okay, let's listen to this through, see how it sounds. Oh, before we do, I'm just going to take out the crashes in every second duplicated one. Okay, yeah, we probably only want that every 16. Let's maybe change the crash on the very first one here. I think there's another one we can use. Oh. Okay, let's try that. And I didn't like the way this first edit sounded. Let's just go in there and edit this one a bit more. Oh, it's this. sure where those other hats are coming from. Huh. Still more down below by the looks of it. Okay, I think that sounds a bit better. I'm not even really sure about that edit, but let's listen to it through. Definitely sounds better though. Alright, cool. So we've got our MIDI groove in there now, and it's a bit more interesting. There's going to be a few more elements we're going to have to consider when mixing. So now I've shown you kind of how to, you know, create grooves and or changes to your drum track and edits with the MIDI parts. Let's go into the instrument itself and export this all to the Cubase mixer. Now the reason I chose this preset is because it's actually pretty basic. I'm just going to reset the second kit here, we don't need that anymore. And remove this second MIDI channel. Okay, just to avoid clutter there. So I'm just going to save this kit now that we've got our fills. And maybe, oh yeah, with this last fill, or that first one, sorry, let's drag that back now we've edited it to here. Oh, let's undo that, sorry. It's this. Okay. So let's save the kit now. We've got all of our edits edited and sounding kind of in line with the rest of the groove. So now we have our MIDI in place, we can export the mixer like I did at the end of the last video. And this kit's pretty vanilla. The only thing that won't export over is the reverb send. So I'm going to create one in Cubase with Valhalla Room instead. So that was one of the reasons why I chose this kit. It's quite old school break sounding, but there's very little processing really happening in Groove Agent for us to change in Cubase, and the reverb isn't really doing very much or adding very much to the kit. So let's go ahead and export everything. Okay, so I'm going to open the mix console at the bottom here. If I zoom out, you'll be able to see more of what's going on. Now, up here, you're going to see these tracks created under here are our groups. Now, this is our master. I'm just going to call this master to avoid confusion. And now, this is a group track. So our recording one that we were using last time, we can just set that to the master now if we want to record, because you need to set it to a group. So basically it's set up all of our outputs right here. These are all the individual mics, and then it's also created group tracks, routed all of the kick mics to the kicks, the snare mics to the snare, etc., cymbals to cymbals. But it doesn't create the reverb send, so we're going to have to take care of that now. So I'm just going to go to the bottom here and add a effects track, Valhalla room. I'll just call it reverb send. And we'll add that. I'm just going to change the color of it just so it stands out a bit. Okay. Now on here, we're going to go in and we're going to want the mix on 100% because we're going to be sending stuff to it. But let's just, for now, we'll find a preset that's made for a drum room. Let's try the gate drum room. Okay, so we've got our reverb send set up, but now we need to make sure everything's sent to it. So this is our master channel here. I'm not going to touch this one because we've got everything routed now, but I'm going to select from the kick main, scroll all the way over. I'm just going to close span or move it down, and I'm going to shift click over on the master. And then here, I'm going to turn on quick link, and I'm going to send this one to the reverb, and it should create a send for every single track. There we go. And it looks like they're all switched off but turned up. So I'm going to I'm just going to zoom in a bit here. Bring these all down. Okay, but we can turn them off. Well, yeah, let's leave them off for now. Okay, so now we've got that set up. I'm just going to close this, and we're going to be focusing mainly on our groups for now. I'm just going to turn off quick link as well. So while our MIDI's looping through, we'll start going through the groups and just kind of I'll bring span back up here, and we can firstly look at what has ported over from Groove Agent as far as the effects and the EQing goes, and maybe we can get a bit more surgical with some different plugins and try and maintain the same kind of vibe of the break, but you know, beef it up a little bit, get rid of some of the kind of ringiness of the snare, things like that, before we export it to audio. It's going to sound a bit different now because we don't have the reverb send set up and we're not sending anything to it yet. Okay, so we're going to see what's going on with the kick. Okay, so it looks like it's ported over some saturation. We're going to go ahead and take that off. These are bypassed, so we can just remove those. And let's have a look at what's going on with the EQ. Okay, so we've got a lot of boxiness here that needs to go. I think I'm just going to go ahead and reset this EQ here and load up an instance of frequency on this kick bus. Just going to go ahead and turn all of those off. Now I love this EQ. This was a pretty recent addition to Cubase, but one of the better things that they've added in recent versions. Now what I love about this is you really, you know, it's almost as good as, say, FabFilter Pro Q2. Each of these 8 bands can be switched to mid-side, linear phase. Yeah, you can turn it to linear phase. and it shows where you are both in pitch and in frequency. The analyzer, you can switch to stereo, like I've got my span set up. It's not really going to show much with this kick drum because it's probably mostly mono anyway. And then you can also switch it to a bar graph if you prefer that. Another cool thing about this, which I'll show you when we start actually processing this, I mean, with this low end, I think I'm going to just scoop out a bit of the low frequency here. Maybe with quite a steep curve and a linear phase filter at around 40 Hertz maybe. We're going to be layering this with, you know, another kick later that's going to be giving most of the power to the low end of the break, so we don't need too much low end in it. I think the next thing we're going to do is start focusing on some of the boxiness around the 400 area, so we'll bring one of these down, and you can kind of see where that boxiness is. And what you can do is on this filter we can just invert that, and with this on, it also solos what we're taking out while you select this. Maybe we'll give it a little boost at 100 just to pull that punch up a bit. About 2 dB. And maybe give it a little boost around, I don't know, 4K to try and bring up that top a bit. We could maybe just shelf the high end, but we're not really going to want that, so let's cut that actually. And then give a little boost around here to pull the highs out a bit. Okay, it's taking some of the flabbiness out of it. Another thing we could do is we could maybe, well, we're probably going to, now that we've got this, I guess we could put this in mid-side mode actually. And we're going to cut the side information right around there, I guess, and then the mid information will leave right around, cutting right around where it is. And then we can really go in and start looking at, you know, the two mics that are a part of the kick. So let's maybe have a look at those. Okay, it looks like they're already scooping out a lot of the mid on that preset. But that's where most of that boxiness is coming from, is this layer, I think. So let's scoop it a bit more, I think. Let's have a listen to the other layer. Okay, I think, you know, we can work with that. There's no other effects on it. We can maybe try sending the kicks just a little bit to the reverb there. Oh, it's soloed, that's why. Let's have a look at the snares now. Again, everything's bypassed here. We can just take all this off. That was one of the reasons I like this preset. Okay, so it looks like it's scooping around 1K, pushing around 200, which is where you'd expect, cutting a little bit of the lows. So I'm going to turn off that EQ, and we're going to put frequency on again. It looks like that ringing's around 1K. That must have been what they were scooping. We're going to put a cut on here. We don't need to go linear phase this time, I think. We'll do like a 24 dB cut. Just try not to affect the actual fundamental. Maybe we'll put that boost back in around 200. Yeah, you can really hear that harmonic ringing in there that they were trying to take out with that EQing. So yeah, we can really dial in on that. Maybe switch to linear phase on a narrow cut like that. And really, yeah, we're just trying to find nasty frequencies in the snare to scoop out. Let's maybe shelf up the high end a little bit. Quite a difference there. So we're still getting a lot of low end. Oh, it's probably coming through the room mic or something. The master probably. Okay, we can start looking at the, let's have a look at the hi-hat, make sure that the lows are taken out of that. Okay. It's not sounding too bad, but there's an area around 200-300 we could scoop out a bit more. So I'm just going to, again, turn off this EQ. We've got tape saturation here, which will replicate as well, so let's take that off. And we're going to load an instance of frequency again. And we're going to roll off everything above. Probably about 500 to 1K. And then to replace the tape saturation, we could maybe try magneto. Okay, it kind of excites the hats a little. See how it sounds. Okay, not bad. And then you can see that it's also ported over all of the panning from Groove Agent as well. So let's maybe take a look at that. Our hat's over to the right by 20. It looks like most of the crashes, or the crash we're using most, is also on the right. The one we're using at the beginning is on the left. I'm going to kind of bring these in a little. And the hi-hat I'm going to bring a bit closer to the middle. The toms we'll leave like as they are, I think. And let's make sure that everything's kind of centered over here. The snare's slightly left, I'm going to center that. We're not using the China. Again, I think I'm going to just bring these in a touch more. How about that? And you know, you could build a break this way, but the fact that you can't turn off round robin really makes me prefer to resample the acoustic agent into the beat agent and do most of my processing at that stage. You know, I might go in and do a bit of EQing like this and take out some unwanted frequencies at this stage, but I'm not really going to be trying to go too in depth. But we can still go back into the instrument and control the tuning and the envelope. So let's maybe try that a bit, and maybe put something on the master to fatten it up a little bit. And we can also start sending some elements to the reverb. Let's maybe try Okay, yeah, it definitely warms it up nicely. Let's just maybe run it into this for now and see what happens when we start messing with the envelopes and the tuning in the instrument. Oh yeah, before we do that, let's maybe send some elements to the reverb. Yeah, it's kind of adding some springiness I'm not sure I like though. I think it's just pulling it out of the snare. But anyway, you get the idea. This, we could take this a lot further here and really fully process every element of the mix. But I'm not trying to sit here for hours and completely build this from scratch. I'm really just trying to show you, how you can really go in and, if you don't like using the effects within Groove Agent, because they are pretty limited and basic. And I for one hate using those basic 4-channel EQs with just a few dials and no visualization. So that's kind of how you can build an interesting groove. Using MIDI programming as well as a little help from the preset libraries, and then export everything to the mixer and go in and start really controlling everything on a very detailed level. So yeah, I think that really wraps it up for the acoustic agent. I think I don't generally use this as much as the beat agent. I think it's kind of cool still. We could go in and start editing the tuning again, but I feel like we already covered that in part one. This was more about showing the style player and how you can use it without just relying on it 100% to write your drum track for you, because that is essentially not what we're trying to do when we're being creative. So yeah, that's it for I think the acoustic agent. Next one I make we'll cover the beat agent, maybe some of the loops that I exported last time in part one, or maybe I'll work on this project a little more and bounce out a nice sounding break with some processing for us to use, and we can compare how, you know, that would sound versus some old school breaks with some one shots and some percussion from the percussion agent, and really build a full drum track when we start getting into the beat agent. Alright, so yeah, that's it for another video, guys. Hope this was informative. I think we've pretty much covered the acoustic agent in quite a lot of detail now and what it's capable of. So yeah, let's move on to the beat agent next time in part 3. Peace.